Okay, you all good? Let's do it. Hello and welcome to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast. You're listening to the B2C Lead Gen Podcast. My name is Daniel Hopewell here with Simon Delaney, and this is episode 70. The first question you need to ask yourself, self-serviced or managed? Simon, let's kind of set the scene to kick this off. When does someone need to ask that question, and what exactly do we mean when we say self-service or managed, just in case it's not, that advert?
So self-service or managed is a couple of terms used for SaaS, basically. So when you're using the software, is it something you're going to do internally as a company or as a person or as a team? Or do you need to outsource it? That could be to an agency or to the company that runs or owns the software. So this is literally about getting stuff done. So, do you have marketing operations expertise or front-end development internally to run this software, or is someone else going to have to do it? In terms of who it's for, so self-service is, if you would have the technical ability to corral the software and wrangle it into a situation that's going to make it the most efficient and make you hit sort of targets and growth and everything else that you want. And managed is just doing the same thing, but you just don't have that capability internally.
Yeah. I was going to sort of lead on, but I feel like at this point we need to kind of sort of clarify that this kind of came about because we were talking about this internally in the office. We try and avoid talking about Databall on the show as much as possible, but we were literally talking about it in relation to like people, whether they choose self-service or manage when they're signing up for Databall. So it kind of came about because of that. I feel it'd be a miss to not mention that. So yeah, we'll sort of make the kind of the promise to try and not sell it as we do it, but purely to illustrate, we're talking about the various users you get and how some people pick the wrong choice sometimes. It's okay to say that they pick self-service when actually they should be on a managed, and I guess it works the other way, maybe not as much. But just to illustrate it, like using Databall as an example, like who is self-service for and who would managed conversely be for?
So this is one of the biggest problems that I think SaaS companies see, right? I know we do, and I'm pretty sure other people experience the same thing. It's the number one problem. And the funny thing is, it's the number one problem for the people that are using the software, which is why we're quite qualified to speak about this, right? So what I think the typical scenario is someone comes on, let's say you land on the Databall website and you go to pricing and you can see we don't actually have the managed pricing on there. It's like contact us because we never know what it's going to involve. But let's imagine it did have managed pricing on there. And it said, I don't know, $1,000 a month for managed, $500 a month for self-service. To a man or a woman or anyone else, I can virtually guarantee that everyone just gets drawn to the lower cost. And what they'll think is, you already know your requirements. So, you obviously have some like complex movement of data, or you're collecting data and you want to carrying out a bunch of exercises and, deduping it, verifying it, suppressing it, delivering it via API, receiving it, tracking it all at a micro level. And so because you're in your brain, you can sort of, you know what you need to do. You just think, well, if I take this software, I sort of know what I need to do, so I'll muddle through it and figure it out. Now, if you're not like a marketing operations person, you're not a front-end developer or anything like that, what this means is when you have software like this, rather than just like knowing what it is you want, you've now got to execute what you want. And then it becomes like an entirely different story. This is where the struggle starts, because you'll suddenly encounter difficult things like, I don't know, I want to set up a ping tree that has a condition set with this dedupe on it and a cap here. I don't want it to be round robin. I want it to be in an ordered weighted scenario. There can be all these different like complex routings and things. And there's nothing wrong with not being able to understand this and not be able to do it, right? But you need to be realistic about the fact that you can understand and you can like tell someone what needs to be done, but that doesn't mean you can do it yourself. This is why a marketing operations person is so important. And now that's either going to be like in your team, in your company, or you're going to have to outsource it, which is why agencies exist for like Salesforce and HubSpot all over the world. There's thousands of people that make money from executing the marketing operations that people that license technology want to happen. And in lead generation, or companies that generate leads and buy leads to some degree, I think there can be like massive desperation to cut costs, grow really quickly, get revenue in, everything else. That this thought of whether we're going to do it like as a self-servicing or manage it becomes irrelevant. It just becomes, let's get the cheapest option possible. We'll just apply these bunch of rules and, you know, get the leads running in straight away. And it's literally, I see this so many times, people fall apart. And in terms of like a software company then dealing with that, what it actually becomes is like you're trying to educate someone in marketing operations. You're not really teaching them about the system anymore. You know, you're showing them how to do things, but that isn't actually really what's needed. They sort of need to understand the movement of data and how this is like orchestrated through a system, how condition sets work, how certain front end development things can work, how API responses affect the status of leads. You know, there's all these like cron tab schedules. It's, you know, once you dig into it, you're just like, this person never expected that not only were they going to have to learn the system, just like any other system, but they're actually having to learn some fundamentals about marketing operations. And so this is where it becomes, you need to ask yourself, and you've got to be really realistic. Can I actually do this? And am I going to invest the time knowing this is going to massively slow me down and potentially be frustrating because I have no idea how to execute what I've got in my mind? Or am I just going to pay someone else to do it? Because there's a cost both ways, right? That's what you need to decide.
I think you're talking there. I think the thing that becomes obvious to me, or at least interesting, is that I wonder if this kind of comes in part down to sort of underappreciating the role that marketing ops plays. Especially, like, you know, we're sort of saying how in America it's probably a bigger thing. Like we talked to Daryl Alfonso before. Maybe they're a little bit ahead in that sense. Maybe it's a UK thing where maybe they think, I know there's this attitude. I've done before myself. Like I'll look at software maybe and just think, oh, I can wing that. But then there is a cost. It's an opportunity cost, though. It's the cost of time, the hours you spend learning it, I guess. I wonder if it just comes down to the fact that maybe people don't appreciate just how vital that marketing ops role actually is.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. So I think that a lot of lead generators that are a bit sort of fly by night and just, you know, want to get up and running and set a landing page up really quickly, get leads coming in because they've got an order like to fulfill immediately. And so there's no appreciation behind the, like, you know, this stuff is like, I mean, it's simple as in if you know what you're doing, you can go ahead and do it. But if you don't, you just have in your mind, you know, you're going to, I just see this stuff all the time. So I think the first point is that some lead generators, like in their haste to just get things moving really quickly. And actually what it does is typically they can kick problems just further down the road. And what they'll do is either like a really inefficient setup, and then it just starts causing problems as they're trying to scale, or they just hit this like complete roadblock and they have no idea what they're doing. So, you know, I've seen scenarios where people have, like, you know, on a Friday at 6 p.m. suddenly decided to like get something launched for the Monday. They have no idea what they're doing because they don't know how to set an API up. You know, they don't know how to set condition sets up. They don't know like fully how a ping tree works or whatever it is. And so, you know, they want to be up and running by Monday at 9 a.m. and they've just gone bosh and they can't move from it. And what can happen is, and this is, I'm not trying to defend Dateable here, this happens with every software. They can blame the software, but actually it's their fundamental lack of knowledge of like an appreciation potentially, like you said, of marketing operations. Now, this can happen for the companies that buy leads as well, but typically theirs is a much more considered approach because they've got like a lot, there's a much bigger engine behind all of this. They know it needs to connect to like a dialer, to a CRM, to a database. They know that they need to like track all these things. The haste isn't necessarily there to like set everything up immediately, but you can still encounter the same problem, but that's more of like a cost thing. So they'll just be like, okay, yeah, I want to pay a self-service price, and I'll try and muddle through myself to figure this up. But you still have the same opportunity loss, because what can happen is, it might take you 3 days to figure something out. You've had to read all this documentation, go through all these things. But actually, if you have a marketing operations person, they could do it in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is. Setting up an API, I've seen people going to Zapier, which is like the easiest thing, if you know what you're doing, on earth to use, and they'll spend 4 hours setting up an API on it. You stick me in front of, or you, or like most people at Databall in front of Zapier, it was set up in like, 2 minutes? Like an API, and it's just because that's what we're like used to and experienced in, and
Yeah, I think, I can't remember who said this on this call or whether it was before we actually started, the podcast. I think you pointed out like it's the false economy aspect is, I think, the biggest sort of issue. People think, okay, it's cheaper if I do it myself, but that is just entirely a false economy, because in the long run there'll be more pain, and not even just in terms of like the hours you spend doing it, the extra cost, whatever it is. In terms of the money you don't make because things aren't optimized well enough, I guess it's two ways of looking at it.
Yeah. I think it is, it is a problem. And I speak to a lot of other SaaS owners, and they, I know they have the same issue. So I speak to some tracking software as well, and they'll say like our number one problem is users that like don't really know what they're doing at all. Because what happens internally is, and I mentioned this at the top, is you're not really educating them about the software. The onboarding isn't about software. You're trying to educate them about like how data moves, and how like, it's like trying to imagine someone turning up and going like, oh, I want to make a bridge. And you go, well, I don't know, have you done engineering before? And they go like, no. You're like, okay, well, I sort of need to teach you about engineering before you can go and make a bridge. It's kind of the same, because you're not really learning the system as part of an onboarding. You're not really getting into what the system does. You're just trying to get the fundamentals of like data orchestration and all the rules and sort of, I call it the physics around data that apply. That's really, it's something that should almost come before. It should be like a course, and then you come in and learn SaaS systems, and because you understand like, okay, yeah, I can do this, this, and this with it.
Is it something that you would say it's more, I guess, smaller companies and startups that kind of make the mistake of picking the self-service when they should be picking the managed, because it's purely like a financial thing? Or do you see this from like bigger companies who maybe,
no, you tend not to see it from bigger companies, because their budget constraints just aren't the same, because they'll either have a team internally, right, that like they'll have front-end developers or whoever, or marketing operations person, and they can just go and get it immediately. And you've got to remember, when you're a small company, I don't know, if you're dealing with a company with 2,000 employees, the person that you're dealing with is, this sort of thing. It's probably not their money. Well, 100% it won't be their money unless it's the CEO, a shareholder or something, or any of the C-suite or, director level. When you're dealing with a company of like 5 people, this literally is their money. So when they look at like the pricing of things, that it's a bit like you going into a shop. You're looking for deals. You're wanting to like save money wherever you can. And so the first thing you think is, well, why on earth would I pick that option? But it can, I'm 100% sure, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, it works out more expensive for them, because they lose time. They spend like the amount of time people can spend trying to like figure this stuff out or learn it, the opportunity loss, like you mentioned, can be massive. Like I see this constantly. This isn't, It's something I see virtually all day, every day.
I mean, we literally talked about it because was having this conversation in relationship. We thought, actually, I mean, I don't know if it is. Hopefully, this is a good part of the subject. We weren't into your minds about it, but we kind of thought a lot of people make this mistake, or maybe aren't discussing this or thinking about this in the right way. So I think it's worth bringing it into focus. But I guess what I'm trying to ask is, if someone's listening to this, maybe on the edge about which side they go, how do you make that correct choice?
Well, this is the difficult one. I think the key thing is you have to be realistic about what your strengths are. So if your primary strength is getting deals for clients to sell them leads, but not around marketing operations or technical setups or anything else, this, you just look at the cost of this. So you got one, you're gonna have to learn a system. You're gonna have to learn marketing operations and some sort of technical stuff. It's gonna take time. That takes time away from you getting deals. You're then gonna have to learn the system. It takes time away from you getting deals. You're then gonna have to do like all the implementation, everything around this takes away from you getting deals. And then all that while you've had the cost of the system, the cost of not getting the deals, and the cost of nothing actually happening in it this whole time. So if you're in that scenario, you just have to be realistic about it and go, what am I losing by doing this? What is that total cost? If it's going to take me 4 days to get X, Y, and Z done, and I might never be able to do it anyway. Or I could just get someone else to do it for me for 4 hours work.
Also, to clarify, we don't necessarily mean hiring someone internally to do that. Like, the manager could, let's say we can do it for people. I think that's worth pointing out.
Yeah. It's entirely different if you have to hire someone to do it, obviously, because then it's a huge ongoing overhead. Yeah, you could either get a freelancer. If you, like you mentioned, I don't want to push Dateable, but we offer a managed solution. I'm sure there's other systems out there. Even if you're using something like Salesforce, there's all these agencies and everything everywhere. So you just have to be realistic about it. I think that's it. You just got to identify your strengths and work to your strengths constantly. I don't know. I've got a gardener, not because I wouldn't mind doing gardening. I just don't know anything about it. I don't want to mess my garden up, so I get a gardener. Do you know what I mean? So I could just get it done. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hopefully a bit of a different podcast. Hopefully it was interesting, different angle. We'll see how it does. The numbers don't lie. We'll check the listens. That was episode 70. The first question you need to ask yourself: self-service or managed? Thanks for listening to the B2C Lead Generation podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe to hear more from those at the very cutting edge of the lead gen world.